So we're going to skip past the fluff and jump right into it. You've been saving this money for years. Maybe you have it in a savings account, maybe a high yield savings account. Maybe you're like me and you've kept the money under your mattress because you trust the mattress more than you trust the banks. Trust me, I've been there. But you also know that you need to grow this money and invest it because that money is going to become your retirement over time. But you're afraid. You've never invested before. And you know that if you put this money in the wrong investment, you have no one to blame but yourself. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can go from having that security blanket to investing it in a way to where you feel confident. Now, before I start, I want to say this. I know that we all are different ages. We all have different risk tolerance, and we all have different goals. This is assuming someone who they're not a high risk person. They're also not too conservative. They're kind of the middle of the road. And we're going to say about $200,000. $200,000 is what has been saved over the years. And that person now is trying to put that money to work. This is exactly how I would do it. Now, normally, the structure of most portfolios, I would say, should usually be 50%, 25%, and 25%. 50% goes into the S&P 500, 25% goes into individual stocks, and 25% goes into cash. This time, I'm going to structure it a little differently, and you're going to see why. I'm still going to keep 50% in the S&P 500. Why? Because the S&P 500 has a track record of doing 8 to 10% over the last 100 years. Usually it does about 8.5% on the growth and another 1.5% on the dividends, altogether creating about 10%. Most hedge funds, most money managers, 90% of people cannot beat the S&P 500. So just keeping half of your money there, already you're above 90% of the game. That's first. 25% is going to go into individual stocks. But I'm only going to choose a few stocks. You don't want to choose many stocks because you already have many stocks inside your index fund in the S&P 500. So that 25% that you're going to have in individual stocks should be the best in class. In technology, it may be, let's say, a Microsoft, or it could be, let's say, an NVIDIA. Consumer staples, it could be a Walmart, but it's going to be the best in class. I'm only going to choose about 2 or 3 of them. And the reason is because with buying those few stocks, I believe in also putting those stocks to work. And what I mean by that is selling options. Selling options is a way to earn income just in case your stocks are not performing, which is what's happening this year. You're selling options on those few positions you have because that's where your cash flow is going to come in at. That's critical. Now, the other 25%, I usually say to keep it in cash. But in this scenario, I would keep 20% of my money inside cash. And why cash 20%? Because that 20% is also sitting inside a money market account. So you're going to get today is about 3.5% you're getting on that cash. And you're buying patience. So since the market has been up the last 3 years, at any given time, we could easily have a 20% pullback this year. That could happen easily. Now, why that happens is very important for you to be level-headed and not start liquidating your positions when that happens. Instead, you want to start going in deeper when that happens so you can get a better position price-wise. And you can only do that by having cash in what I call your opportunity account, waiting for that to happen so you can buy either more of the S&P 500 or you can build up your individual positions and make them heavier. Because if you're in great companies, when the stock market rebounds, those companies will rebound twice as fast as the stock market. But only certain companies will rebound. So this is why it's important to only be inside the best companies inside their industry, because all of the indexes have those companies. So every 401k is going to have Apple inside of it. Every 401k is going to have NVIDIA inside of it. Some of these small companies that you may be in that could be risky, they may not rebound. But the best companies are forced to rebound when the index rebound. And this is the reason why cash is so important sitting inside your opportunity account. Now, the other 5%, that 5% is there for a hedge position. This is what hedge funds actually do. So you take that 5%, and with that 5%, what I'm doing is I'm buying puts. I'm buying long dated puts on the S&P 500. The reason I'm doing that is just in case we have a pullback, I'm protected even more. Because now if we have a pullback, let's say 20%, my 5% on the S&P 500 is going to start rising in value. I'm making money while the stock market is going down on that position. So all of these work together. They all serve a different purpose. And just so you can see how that looks like, none of this matters without stress testing it. So I'm going to stress test this and show you exactly what this type of portfolio would look like. Let's say if the market was to go down 20% or go up, let's say 10%. Testing this portfolio. During a 20% drop in the S&P 500, your portfolio is only down 4%. Just think about that, just 4%, although the market dropped 20%. And this is why. Remember, half of your portfolio is in the S&P 500. So 100,000, that only dropped 20,000. And your individual stocks, what I use is Nvidia and Amazon as individual stocks. Also, I'm using ExxonMobil. So I'm using 3 stocks, but I'm only selling cover calls on 2 of the stocks, which are Nvidia and Amazon. In those 2 stocks, even though the market fell 20%, you're only down 3,700 on those 2 stocks. And this is why. So usually when the market falls 20%, I would say stocks like Nvidia and Amazon, they're going to fall, I would say at least 40%. And so if we bought those stocks, how we bought them today, you could receive about $300 to $400 every single month. If we was to just do a long dated cover call and go out 1 year, you can receive over $3,000 on that Nvidia cover call. Same with Amazon. If we go out about a year, you can receive over $3,000 on Amazon. So together, from the premiums you're going to receive on Amazon and Nvidia, that's about $6,000. And so if you subtract that $6,000 from the share prices, if those stocks was to fall 40%, that leaves you with only being down $3,700. Because you got to remember also too, Nvidia is already down about 15% from the all-time high. Amazon is already down another 20% from the all-time high. So these stocks together, they only each have to fall about 20 to 25% more to be down 40%. So that's why selling covered calls on those individual stocks are so important, because they're going to bring the premium that's going to stabilize your portfolio. ExxonMobil, I chose that stock as the 3rd stock because ExxonMobil usually trades inverse of the market because it's an oil play. As you can see right now, oil is up while the S&P is down. So that's kind of an inverse play. And then you have your cash sleeve in your money market account. Remember, the money market account, that's earning you 3.5%. So your cash is playing a very vital role in giving you cash while your portfolio is going down. So, that's important as well. And then you have the 5% hedge. And this is one of the biggest ways to why your portfolio is only down 4%. We're using 5% of the $200,000 to buy puts on the S&P 500, basically to bet against the SPY going down. And this is simply for protection of your portfolio. Think of it as like insurance. If something bad happens, you really want it, although you hope nothing bad happens, but just in case, it's good to have it. And that's what buying puts is. So if the market was to fall 20%, your puts are going to raise about $15,000. So that's helping you there. So when you put all of it together, you're only down about 4%. And this is why this is such a balanced portfolio, because you're really hedging yourself in a way to where you don't really feel it while other people do feel it. Now, let's say if the market was to go up 10%. If the market goes up 10%, now your portfolio is up 9%. Even though you have all this protection, your portfolio is still up 9% because you're selling covered calls on Nvidia and Amazon. Your covered calls alone is up $15,000. This is one of those portfolios where it works in an up market. You're meeting everyone else in an up market. And in a down market, you're only receiving 1/5 of the pain. This is the one thing that makes it even more powerful. Let's say if the market was to go down 20% and you remove all your hedges and you was to start adding money to that portfolio every single year. So someone who has $200,000, if they was to add 10% or $20,000 every year and continue that, that portfolio would end up being $1 million in just 12 years. Think about how powerful that is. So this is why it's very important to construct your portfolio according to your goals, according to your risk tolerance. In this example, this is how someone who's less risky can still put their portfolio in a position to where they're being protected and they're still able to grow their portfolio in a short term to reach that $1 million mark. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Please comment, subscribe. Let me know if there's a number that you want to cover for an all-weather portfolio. See you guys in the next video.